There is a country where you can stand at the edge of an active volcano as molten lava erupts into the night sky. Hidden beneath its tropical forests are freshwater springs so clear that swimmers appear to float in mid-air. And just offshore, a 650-foot American ship still rests on the ocean floor, preserving one of the Pacific War's most remarkable stories. This is Vanuatu. A nation scattered across more than 80 islands, shaped by volcanoes, storms, and the vast Pacific Ocean. Yet despite its isolation and constant challenges, Vanuatu is often recognized as one of the world's most remarkable examples of happiness and sustainable living. So what is it that makes this small island nation so extraordinary? By the end of this journey, you may find that what makes Vanuatu unforgettable has very little to do with its beaches and everything to do with the people who have learned to live among them. At first glance, Vanuatu seems almost lost in the Southwest Pacific, a nation of more than 80 islands scattered across 800 miles of open ocean. But here, distance is not measured only in miles. It is measured by changing seas, unpredictable weather, and the long journeys that have connected these communities for generations. The largest island is Espiritu Santo, known simply as Santo. Beneath its forests lie luminous blue holes and the white sands of Champagne Beach. Just offshore, from the quiet town of Luganville, however, rests something far heavier: the remains of a vast American troop ship, now one of the most extraordinary underwater war memorials in the Pacific. Life across the islands still moves to nature's rhythm. From May to October, calmer seas and clearer skies make travel easier. By November, heavy rain, humidity and cyclone season return, reminding everyone that schedules here are only temporary agreements with the weather. Vanuatu is not a place where nature has been controlled. It is a place where people have learned to move with it. That relationship began around 3,000 years ago, when Lapita sailors crossed the open Pacific using stars, currents, and knowledge passed from one generation to the next. Their descendants later endured colonial rule before Vanuatu finally gained independence on July 30th, 1980. Today, just over 300,000 people live across the archipelago. They call themselves Ni Vanuatu and communicate through English, French, Bislama, and more than 100 indigenous languages. Think about that. Over 100 living languages among a population smaller than many Western cities. Those languages carry more than words. They preserve custom, ancestral knowledge, social rules, spiritual beliefs, and loyalty to the village. To understand Vanuatu, you cannot remain on the map. You have to step onto the islands themselves, and the journey begins where the land speaks loudest. The journey to Mount Yasur on the island of Tanna feels less like visiting a tourist attraction and more like stepping onto another world. As the road climbs higher, dense rainforest gives way to endless plains of black, volcanic ash. The landscape grows quieter, emptier, almost lunar in appearance. Then comes a deep rumble. Before you've seen the crater or a single glow of lava, you can already feel the volcano beneath your feet. Most visits begin in the late afternoon, allowing enough time to reach the summit before nightfall. After a mandatory safety briefing at the local reception area, four-wheel drive vehicles make the final climb across the ash plain. A short walk through swirling volcanic dust leads to the designated viewpoints, where one of the world's most accessible active volcanoes reveals its true spectacle after dark. Standing there while the sun still shines, you look directly down into a massive crater measuring nearly 1,300 feet wide. As the daylight completely fades, the true terrifying spectacle begins. Glowing lava and searing materials violently ejected into the pitch-black sky. Massive columns of toxic gas and dense ash tower high above the scarred, lifeless landscape surrounding the peak. It raises an uncomfortable question that nobody standing at that rim can quite shake. At what point does witnessing something this raw and powerful stop being tourism and start becoming something closer to a spiritual confrontation? Yasur has been erupting almost continuously for an estimated 800 years. Captain James Cook observed this exact glowing vent when he sailed past the island in 1774, cementing its place in early naval navigation. It operates primarily with violent strombolian and volcanic explosions, routinely launching molten rock high into the upper atmosphere. Yasur is certainly much shorter than towering global giants like Mount Etna or Mauna Loa, but extreme elevation is not its main appeal. The true rarity is your ability to stand relatively close to the active vent of a violently erupting volcano without needing a massive multi-day scientific expedition. However, you must never mistake this accessibility for absolute safety. In mid-2026, the Vanuatu Meteorology and Geohazards Department continues to classify Yasur at Alert Level 2, officially indicating major unrest. Tours are frequently modified, observation points are heavily restricted, and access can be completely cancelled due to sudden shifts in toxic gas or wind direction. Local guides in the surrounding Tanna community have lived alongside this volatile neighbor for generations, reading its subtle moods and making the final calls on safety. Ecotourism revenue heavily supports these villages, but they will not hesitate to close the mountain when the land demands distance. Booking a standalone Yasur tour typically costs between $200 and $350 per person, depending on your starting location. Multi-day packages covering your accommodation, airport transfers, and the volcano trek can range anywhere from $300 to $750. The value of this ticket does not come from a guarantee of absolute safety, but from witnessing an incredibly rare geological phenomenon up close, one that has been burning since before Columbus ever set sail. But if fire represents one extreme of what Vanuatu holds, there is something waiting on the island of Espiritu Santo that represents its perfect opposite. Forget everything you think you know about what a swimming hole looks like. At first glance, the water inside the blue holes of Espiritu Santo looks as though it has been artificially enhanced by a Hollywood special effects team. The shallow edges radiate a brilliant glowing turquoise, while the deeper center plunges into a rich, absorbing cobalt blue. Sunken tree trunks and fallen green leaves rest perfectly on the bottom, visible with such immense clarity that the water itself seems to simply vanish. Then someone jumps from the bank, and their silhouette descends deep into the blue, every single motion remaining sharply visible from the surface above, as though they are flying through air rather than water. Reaching the famous Riri Blue Hole often involves slowly paddling a traditional wooden canoe down a quiet, heavily shaded river beneath the dense jungle canopy. A journey so serene that many visitors admit the arrival is almost secondary to the approach. The Matevulu Blue Hole offers a much larger swimming space, featuring wooden platforms and giant rope swings, while the Nanda Blue Hole draws families for its exceptional optical clarity. For those willing to push further off the beaten track, the Malo Blue Hole provides a wilder, more remote atmosphere that rewards the extra effort generously. What creates this impossible color? These are sections of rivers fed entirely by deep underground springs that slowly percolate up through thick layers of limestone. This incredibly slow natural filtration removes almost all suspended sediment, resulting in water so pure that it absorbs red light and reflects pure, intense blue. American travelers might think of the freshwater springs in Florida. Europeans might recall the hidden sea caves of the Mediterranean. But the blue holes of Santo possess a significantly wilder, far less commercialized character that places you directly inside the living, breathing heart of a tropical rainforest. Accessing these sites requires paying a very modest entry fee, usually just $5 to $20 per person, with fees going directly to the traditional landowners who maintain the wooden pathways and fund vital community needs. A fully guided tour including transport and a canoe might cost $50 to $100, offering extraordinary value for an experience that does not exist quite like this anywhere else on Earth. Yet while the blue holes feel like a world suspended in eternal stillness, the waters just off the coast of Santo hold a completely different kind of silence, one that carries a far heavier weight. Descending into the warm blue water just offshore from Luganville, a massive dark shape slowly materializes in the deep. At first, it looks like a sheer underwater cliff face, heavily covered in coral and strange marine growth. Then you begin to recognize the unmistakable geometric shapes of steel railings, a heavy deck gun, and endless rows of shattered promenade windows. This is a colossal steel hull lying completely on its side at the bottom of the ocean. It was originally built as an opulent luxury passenger liner before being drafted into service as a heavily armed military troop ship during the Second World War. Today, huge schools of tropical fish swim freely through endless steel corridors that once carried over 5,000 military personnel across the globe. The SS President Coolidge tragically struck two friendly mines while attempting to navigate safely into the harbor at Espiritu Santo in October 1942. Realizing the ship was doomed, Captain Henry Nelson brilliantly grounded the massive vessel on a nearby reef, allowing thousands of panicked men to safely evacuate before the ship slid backward into the deep trench. Thanks to his decisive action, almost every single soul survived, with only 2 men losing their lives that chaotic day. But here is the detail that stops most visitors cold when they hear it for the first time. One of those 2 men did not have to die. Captain Elwood Ewart had already made it out safely. He chose to go back in. He returned to the rapidly flooding darkness to rescue a group of young soldiers completely trapped behind a heavy, watertight door. He saved them, and then he could not escape himself before the ship plunged under the surface. What compels a man who has already survived to turn around and walk back into certain death? That question hangs in the water every time a diver passes through the corridors he once moved through. The vessel is nearly 650 feet long, roughly 2 American football fields placed end to end, dwarfing the vast majority of recreational shipwrecks accessible to divers anywhere in Europe or the Caribbean. Open water certified divers can explore the shallower exterior portions, while advanced divers descend much deeper into the dark, mechanical interior. A single guided dive typically costs between $70 and $120, though serious divers almost always book packages of 5 or more dives ranging from $300 to $700. One dive will leave you wanting several more. Nature does not erase the scars of human history here. It simply covers them slowly, inch by inch, decade by decade. The Coolidge remains an unparalleled underwater adventure, a sprawling war memorial, and a lasting testament to decisions made in a matter of seconds that determined who lived and who did not. From a 20th century steel giant resting in the deep, the journey now takes you back to dry land, and to a much older kind of legacy. One preserved not by metal or locked museums, but by the unbroken memory of a community that never forgot who their leader was. A powerful man passed away more than 4 centuries ago, yet the exact land where he once lived remains culturally revered today. The hidden cave linked to his final days holds immense spiritual weight, and the small island where he rests is still governed by strict traditional taboos that even modern Vanuatu law does not override. His name was Chief Roy Mata, and in 2008, the domain bearing his name became the very first location in Vanuatu to be inscribed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. What makes this place remarkable is not just its archaeology. It is the fact that the local community already knew exactly where everything was, what it meant, and why it mattered, long before any outside excavation confirmed it. The physical evidence aligned almost perfectly with oral traditions, passed down through countless generations. Is there any greater proof of a civilization's continuity than the land and the living memory agreeing on every detail centuries later? According to deep local history, Roy Mata was a highly influential leader who possessed an extraordinary ability to unite violently warring communities. He restructured broken social relations, successfully mediated deadly conflicts, and brought lasting peace to a heavily fractured region. Upon his death, he was buried on the small island of Erupting, along with many loyal members of his court. A tour to this domain typically starts in Port Vila, heading northwest to be officially and warmly welcomed by the local community. You walk quietly through the ancient settlement of Mangas, listen to the stories of the chief, and take a small boat out toward the sacred burial island. Expect to pay anywhere between $100 and $170 for a fully guided day trip, a fee which heavily supports the surrounding villages. This is not an adrenaline-fueled adventure, but it might be the most quietly unforgettable thing you do in Vanuatu. Because after visiting Roy Mata, the country completely ceases to be merely a collection of beaches and volcanoes, and transforms into a place where the landscape itself carries the authority of centuries. These incredible locations show you what Vanuatu looks like, but its music, food, and daily rituals reveal exactly how the country feels, and that is a different education entirely. In several northern communities, women wade waist-deep into rivers to perform an extraordinary and completely unique form of water music. They use incredibly precise hand techniques to slap the surface, forcefully cup the water, and plunge their arms downward to create deep acoustic bass notes. The flowing water simultaneously becomes a musical instrument, a dynamic stage, and a living part of the cultural performance. Can you imagine mastering an instrument that changes temperature, depth, and flow with every season? On land, indigenous artisans practice the intricate art of Vanuatu sand drawing, another practice officially recognized by UNESCO as intangible cultural heritage. Using a single finger, an artist traces a continuous, completely unbroken line through soft sand or volcanic ash to create mesmerizing geometric patterns. These drawings are not just decoration. They function as complex spatial maps, ancestral genealogies, and educational encyclopedias of local plants. One wrong turn anywhere in the line ruins the entire structure and meaning of the message, a metaphor for the precision with which this culture guards its own knowledge. The traditional food of Vanuatu demands serious time, patience, and the collective physical effort of an extended family. Lap-lap, universally considered the national dish, is created by painstakingly grating massive root vegetables like taro, yam, or cassava into a thick, heavy paste, bathed in fresh coconut milk. Wrapped tightly in banana leaves and baked slowly in a hot earth oven. Another massive local favorite is tuluk, where freshly grated cassava is stuffed with savory minced beef or pork before being tightly wrapped and cooked. You might describe it as a hybrid between a Latin American tamale and a dense, savory dumpling, though nothing tastes exactly like it. Bunia represents both a method of cooking and a joyous communal event, involving massive pits filled with red-hot stones to roast wrapped meats and vegetables for hours. As the intense tropical sun finally sets, the social rhythm of the village shifts entirely toward the preparation and consumption of kava. Made by crushing the thick roots of the Piper methysticum plant and mixing it with fresh water, this earthy and highly bitter beverage is served in half coconut shells. It produces a distinct mild numbing sensation on the lips and heavily relaxes the physical body without dulling the mind in any way. Visitors are always welcome to drink at local community venues called nakamals, provided they remain extremely quiet, wait for local instructions, and never mix the drink with alcohol. The nakamal serves as the ultimate community hub, where village conflicts are resolved, important news is shared, and lasting relationships are quietly solidified in the dark. How much of what we consider social media, therapy, and town hall meetings could be replaced by simply sitting together in the dark with a shared drink and a willingness to listen? In Vanuatu, ancestral knowledge has rightful owners, land is seen as a direct extension of the family, and communal harmony always supersedes any desire for individual glory. The most significant celebration of the entire year occurs on July 30th, marking the proud anniversary of independence. For American visitors, it carries the exact same patriotic weight as the 4th of July, but executed with an intimate small-town communal warmth that a country of 330 million people simply cannot replicate. Traditional spiritual rituals change radically from one island to the next, often revolving around seasonal harvest cycles, chiefly authority, and the intricate exchange of wealth. Pigs hold immense cultural capital across the archipelago, and fully curved pig tusks appear prominently on the national flag. In many isolated islands, social prestige is not achieved by hoarding personal wealth, but by demonstrating the immense capacity to organize rituals and give everything away. What would your own society look like if generosity, not accumulation, was the ultimate measure of success? Modern Christianity plays a massive role in daily life, but it does not exist in opposition to traditional custom. Instead, vibrant church services and ancient ancestral taboos heavily intertwine, creating a totally unique spiritual foundation that outsiders often struggle to categorize at all. Port Vila serves as the bustling commercial capital on Efat, housing government buildings, major banks, large resorts, and central tourist services. Out in the quiet rural villages, daily life revolves around tending the gardens, fishing the reefs, and caring for the vital livestock. Family structures extend far beyond just parents and children, encompassing vast networks of relatives who share absolute responsibility for school fees, wedding costs, and rapid disaster recovery. Time here operates on a very fluid schedule, dictated entirely by the changing weather, unpredictable inter-land boat arrivals, and urgent community obligations rather than the rigid ticking of a clock. As a visitor, embracing this extreme flexibility is not just polite. It is an absolute mandatory requirement for actually enjoying the journey. Vanuatu hides remarkable surprises. Near Hideaway Island, divers can mail waterproof postcards from the world's only underwater post office. Santo offers the white sands of Champagne Beach, while Port Olry invites visitors to slow down over fresh seafood by the sea. Those seeking adventure can trek through Millennium Cave or explore Ambrum, where volcanic landscapes and the mesmerizing Rom dances reveal another side of island life. Every island feels like a different world, as though Vanuatu turned 83 islands into 83 unique stories. Timing matters. Between May and October, calmer seas and clearer water create the best conditions for diving and traveling between islands. April and November can be quieter and cheaper, though tropical downpours become less predictable. Reaching Vanuatu is never quick. Most American travelers spend 18 to 30 hours in transit through Fiji or Australia, while journeys from Europe often stretch well beyond a day. Travel between islands depends on small aircraft, where weather, mechanical issues, and strict baggage limits can disrupt even the best plans. Booking a domestic flight and an international departure on the same day is a gamble few experienced travelers would take. Accommodation ranges from simple village guest houses starting around $40 a night to comfortable resorts between $120 and $250, while luxury waterfront villas often exceed $500. The local currency is the Vanuatu Vatu, and carrying cash remains essential in many villages and markets. Visitors often remember the Ni Vanuatu people as much as the landscapes. Their warmth is genuine, but so is their respect for custom. A welcoming smile is not an invitation to film every ceremony or wander onto every piece of land. Vanuatu welcomes guests, but gently reminds them that these islands are still someone's home. Getting here demands patience, and exploring beyond the main islands demands even more. A passing storm, a delayed flight, or changing volcanic conditions can rewrite your itinerary without warning. Yet that is exactly what makes Vanuatu unforgettable. It has never been polished into a frictionless tourist destination. You come for the fiery glow of Mount Yasur, the crystal waters of Santo, the silent corridors of the SS President Coolidge, or a beach so empty that the only sound you hear is the ocean itself. The question is whether you are willing to travel far enough and wait long enough and adapt enough to find a place that still remains genuinely, entirely different from anywhere else. Which of these extraordinary experiences would make you book a ticket to Vanuatu first? Would it be standing before Mount Yasur, floating in the blue holes, diving the SS President Coolidge, or exploring the domain of Chief Roy Mata. The world is full of extraordinary places, each with a story waiting to be discovered. Subscribe and join us as we continue exploring some of the most remarkable nations on Earth.